Right now, in cities most people never associate with extreme heat, the air outside genuinely feels hotter than 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And for over 100 million Americans, stepping outside today isn't just uncomfortable, it's actually dangerous. This isn't just another summer being called hot on the news. This is a heat index event, and understanding the difference between that and a simple temperature reading is the key to understanding why this particular stretch of weather has become so genuinely alarming to meteorologists and public health officials alike. Let's clear something up right away, because it trips a lot of people up. The temperature you see on your phone isn't always what your body actually experiences outside. The heat index, sometimes called the feels-like temperature, factors in humidity alongside raw air temperature, and that combination changes everything. When the air is humid, sweat can't evaporate off your skin efficiently, and evaporation is literally how your body cools itself down. Less evaporation means your internal cooling system stops working properly, even if the actual thermometer reading looks somewhat survivable. That's exactly what's happening across huge portions of the country right now. A massive dome of high pressure has parked itself over the central and eastern United States, acting almost like a lid on a pot, trapping hot, moist air directly underneath it. Meteorologists call this a heat dome, and when one settles in and refuses to move, it doesn't just bring one hot day, it locks an entire region into a stretch of dangerous heat that can last for a week or longer. So where exactly is it worst right now? The most extreme heat index values are showing up in a surprisingly wide band, stretching from the southern plains through the Mississippi Valley and into the southeast, where sky-high humidity is combining with triple-digit air temperatures to push the heat index toward, and in some spots past, that 110-degree threshold. Cities like Omaha have reported feels-like temperatures crossing that mark, alongside dangerous conditions stretching through Kansas City, Dallas, and Oklahoma City. What makes this particular pattern so unusual is how far the extreme heat has pushed into places that don't typically expect it. Parts of the upper Midwest, including Minneapolis and Fargo, have found themselves under extreme heat warnings with heat index values rivaling what you'd expect in the desert Southwest. Fargo alone has seen heat index values reach as high as 110 degrees, a number that would be startling anywhere, but feels especially extreme for a region better known for brutal winters than blistering summer heat. Meanwhile, out west, the more traditionally expected hotspots are living up to their reputation in dramatic fashion. Las Vegas has pushed past 110 degrees, Phoenix has climbed into the 111-degree range, and Death Valley, one of the hottest places on the planet, has approached 120 degrees. But here's the important distinction. Dry heat in the desert Southwest, while genuinely dangerous, behaves differently than the humid heat gripping the central and eastern states, because low humidity at least allows sweat to evaporate and provide some natural cooling relief. If you're finding this breakdown of what's actually happening in the atmosphere helpful, go ahead and subscribe, because we cover exactly these kinds of extreme weather stories as they unfold throughout the summer. The humidity factor is really what separates a rough, hot day from a genuinely life-threatening one. Across the southeast and up through the Mississippi Valley, high humidity is preventing overnight low temperatures from dropping much below 75 to 80 degrees. That might not sound extreme on its own, but when your body never gets a real chance to cool down overnight, heat stress builds cumulatively, day after day, night after night, without any true recovery window. Doctors and emergency room physicians consistently point to this lack of overnight relief as one of the most dangerous aspects of prolonged heat events like this one. The human cost of these extended heat waves is already becoming clear. Health officials have confirmed multiple heat-related deaths across the country this month, with several fatalities reported in a single county alone over just a handful of days. Emergency rooms in some of the hardest hit cities have reported spikes in heat-related illness ranging from heat exhaustion to the far more. Dangerous heat stroke, a condition that can become fatal within minutes if a person's core body temperature isn't brought down quickly. Certain groups face dramatically higher risk during events like this. Older adults, young children, outdoor workers, people experiencing homelessness, and anyone without reliable access to air conditioning are all considered especially vulnerable. Public health officials have been urging people to check in on elderly neighbors and family members, since heat-related illness can develop quickly and isn't always obvious to the person experiencing it. There's also a secondary danger riding along with this heat that catches a lot of people off guard: severe thunderstorms. When a heat dome finally starts to break down at its edges, the clash between the hot, humid air mass and cooler air pushing in from the north or west can trigger intense, fast-developing storms. Over the past few weeks, parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes region have seen destructive wind gusts, large hail, and even a few tornadoes forming right along the boundary of this heat dome. meaning some of the same communities baking under extreme heat warnings have also had to watch for severe weather alerts within the same 24-hour period. So what's actually driving a heat dome this intense, and why does it feel like this kind of event keeps happening more often in recent years? Scientists point to a combination of factors working together. This year, a developing El Niño pattern in the Pacific Ocean is helping reshape global atmospheric circulation, contributing to the kind of wavy, stuck jet stream pattern that allows high pressure ridges to lock in place over a region for extended stretches instead of moving through quickly like they typically would. On top of that natural variability, the broader warming trend driven by climate change means that every heat dome now forms on top of a warmer baseline than it would have decades ago, making record-breaking heat index values more achievable than they once were. Meteorologists have also noted that this particular heat wave arrived with temperatures running 20 to 30 degrees above seasonal averages in some northern states, an anomaly large enough to challenge daily temperature records that, in some cases, had stood since the 1930s. When a heat dome pushes numbers that far above what's typical for a given location, it stresses infrastructure that simply wasn't built to handle it, including power grids, agricultural systems, and public cooling resources in cities that don't traditionally need to plan for this level of extreme heat. If this kind of real-time weather breakdown is useful to you, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people trying to understand the extreme weather actually affecting their week. And if you want to stay ahead of the next heat alert before it hits your area, make sure you're subscribed because this pattern isn't finished yet. Looking ahead, forecasters expect this broad area of extreme heat to persist across large portions of the country in the coming days, with the core of the most dangerous heat index values continuing to shift slightly depending on how the underlying high pressure ridge moves. The safest approach during a stretch like this is straightforward but easy to underestimate. Stay hydrated well. Before you feel thirsty, limit outdoor exertion during peak afternoon hours. Check on vulnerable neighbors and relatives and take any heat advisory or extreme heat warning in your area seriously, even if the raw temperature number alone doesn't sound especially shocking. Because at the end of the day, it's not really the number on the thermometer that puts people at risk. It's that combined heat index number, the one that accounts for how your body actually experiences the air around it. And right now, across a huge stretch of the country, that number has crossed into territory that health officials aren't taking lightly, no matter how routine another summer heat wave might feel on the surface. Now let's talk about why this specific combination of heat and humidity is so much more dangerous than dry heat of the exact same air. Temperature. Your body's primary defense against overheating is sweating, and specifically, the evaporation of that sweat off your skin. Evaporation requires energy, and pulling that energy from your skin's surface is what actually cools you down. In a dry climate, sweat evaporates quickly and efficiently, giving your body a fighting chance even when air temperatures climb into the triple digits. Humidity breaks that entire system. When the air is already saturated with moisture, sweat has nowhere to go. It sits on your skin instead of evaporating, which means your body's built-in cooling mechanism essentially stalls out right when you need it most. This is exactly why a 95-degree day with high humidity can feel more dangerous, and in some cases actually be more dangerous, than a completely dry 110-degree day in the desert. Meteorologists and health agencies use the heat index specifically to communicate this reality in a single, understandable number. When you hear a forecast say the heat index will reach 110 degrees, that's meteorologists translating the combined effect of temperature and humidity into the number that actually matters for your safety, rather than just reporting the raw air temperature alone. It's also worth understanding how these heat index values get calculated, because it isn't just a rough guess. The National Weather Service uses a formula developed decades ago that combines air temperature and relative humidity into one measurement representing how hot the air actually feels to an average person standing in shade with a light breeze. That last detail matters, because heat index values assume shaded conditions. If you're standing in direct, unfiltered sunlight, which millions of outdoor workers and athletes are during events like this, the actual felt temperature can run even higher than the official number. This is part of why occupations that require prolonged outdoor exposure face such elevated risk during events like this current heat wave. Construction workers, landscapers, agricultural laborers, delivery drivers, and utility crews are all working directly in conditions the heat index is designed to warn against, often for 8 hours a day or longer, frequently in direct sunlight, rather than the shaded conditions the official number assumes. Some states and cities have started implementing mandatory rest break requirements for outdoor workers during extreme heat advisories, though coverage and enforcement still vary significantly depending on location. Athletes and student sports programs face similar challenges, and this is an area where guidance has evolved considerably over the past decade. Many school districts and athletic associations now use heat index thresholds to determine whether outdoor practices can continue, get modified with additional water breaks, or need to be moved indoors entirely. Coaches and athletic trainers increasingly rely on real-time heat index monitoring rather than a fixed practice schedule, adjusting activity levels hour by hour as conditions shift throughout a single afternoon. Pets and animals face genuine danger during stretches like this too, something that's easy to overlook amid all the focus on human health impacts. Dogs and cats can't regulate their body temperature as efficiently as humans, and pavement temperatures during a heat dome like this one can reach levels hot enough to burn paw pads within seconds of contact. Veterinarians consistently recommend walking pets during early morning or late evening hours during events like this, avoiding the midday and early afternoon window when both air temperature and ground temperature peak simultaneously. Cities themselves also amplify this kind of heat event through something called the urban heat island effect. Concrete, asphalt, and buildings absorb and retain heat throughout the day, then slowly release that stored heat overnight, which is part of why densely built urban areas often see higher overnight low temperatures than surrounding rural areas during the exact same heat wave. That effect compounds the humidity problem discussed earlier, stacking two separate mechanisms that both prevent the human body from getting real relief even after the sun goes down. Utility companies and power grid operators are watching events like this extremely closely as well, since air conditioning demand during extended heat waves pushes electrical systems close to their operating limits. Some regions have issued voluntary conservation requests during the hottest stretches of this particular event, asking residents to limit non-essential electricity use during peak afternoon hours, specifically to help prevent the kind of grid strain that could lead to rolling outages at the worst possible moment when air conditioning is needed most. As uncomfortable and disruptive as a heat wave like this one is, the practical takeaway remains fairly consistent no matter where you live within the affected zone. Treat any heat, advisory, or extreme heat warning as a genuine safety notice rather than routine summer weather chatter, since the combination of temperature and humidity behind these numbers is precisely what determines whether a hot day stays merely uncomfortable or becomes something considerably more dangerous.